Hello everyone, welcome to another roster review. Of course, you are all Elite members here, so you also have the opportunity to have your roster reviewed. Just hit the link below and submit your list, and who knows, maybe you'll be on next week. So this is an interesting one because I looked through the Drukhari book and I wanted to do something a little bit different. You know, I've seen all the lists going around with like loads and loads of raiders, like 5 or 6 raiders. I've seen quite a few things. I've seen like 9 Talos go around, but we know that's how you normally play. So I tried to have a go at making a list which is a little bit different. It's a bit more concentrated on playing the mission rather than, you know, what you normally do with Dark Eldar, which is like either survive with the Talos or just hit hard with like 30 incubi and all of that kind of stuff. So I tried to have a bit of a balance in there, and let's have a quick look at the list then. So first of all, I've got a Black Heart Patrol detachment. In there, I've got Drazar. Drazar is my warlord because Drazar has the Hatred Eternal warlord trait, so he can just reroll all hits and wounds in combat, which makes him an absolute monster because he's got a flat 3 damage profile and he can fight twice. But it's not like at the end of the fight phase he can fight again. It's like he can be selected to fight twice in this fight phase. So he just fights 2 times, which is incredible. Then I have a Master Archon who has the Jin Blade relic. Really like that. And he's an Archon in the Black Heart, which is cool. Then I've got 5 Kabalite Warriors in a Venom. Of course, I got a Venom from them. So 5 Kabalite Warriors just as they come, because you need a troop in the patrol. Then I've got their Venom has got a Splinter Cannon and a Twin Splinter Rifle. Just one Splinter Cannon, basically. Just so they can whiz around and get some obsec. Then I've got 2 units of 7 Incubi, because Incubi are awesome. I have 2 Raiders with Dark Lances and Grizzly Trophies for them to go in. Then I have a Cursed Blade Patrol detachment. A Master Succubus is in there with the Stim Addict Warlord trait and the Triptych Whip relic. Then I have a unit of troops, 5 Witches. And then I've got Elites. I've got 2 units of 5 Mandrakes. 2 units of 5 Mandrakes. Then I've got 2 fast attack slots, which is 2 units of 10 Hellions, because Hellions are incredible at the moment. Then I've got a Venom. Of course, that's for the Witches to go in, with a Splinter Cannon and Twin Splinter Rifle, just a standard loadout. Then I have a Red Grief Patrol detachment. So, you know, I've switched it up quite a bit. You can't have 2 Master Succubus in the same detachment. So I've got this extra patrol, and that has got a Master Succubus in it too. So I've got a Master Succubus with the Whirling Death Warlord trait, which is the one specific to a Master Succubus. And then she's got the Blood Glaive, because she is Red Grief, which is their relic. The Blood Glaive. It's cool. Then I've got a unit of 5 Witches, again, as the troop, with a Venom. You know, you've got to take a Venom for them. And that's got a Splinter Cannon and a Twin Splinter Rifle on it again, just base, whizzing them around again. Then I've got my Elites. I've got another unit of 6 Incubi. So I've got 7 Incubi, and now I've got 6 Incubi in a Venom. And that's because they fit in a Venom. So I've got 6 Incubi in a Venom, and that Venom's got the Splinter Cannon, the Twin Splinter Rifle, and also Grizzly Trophies, because it's an Incubi transport. And then I've got 5 Mandrakes again. So I've got 3 units of 5 Mandrakes in total. And to finish it off nicely, I have 2 units of 3 Reavers. So that is the list. Let's have a look at how it works, because there's loads of moving pieces here. So looking at how it works, this is a very interesting list. And there are so many moving parts to this. So the first thing to note, though, is it's triple patrol, right? There's a Black Heart, a Cursed Blade, and a Red Grief patrol in there. So it's triple patrol. And Dark Eldar have a special rule. Drukhari have a new special rule in this codex, where if your army is made up entirely of patrol detachments, then all of their command costs change to 0. So it all costs 0 CP, 0 CP, 0 CP, 0 CP, meaning you've got 12 CPs to play with. But, so you notice your cost changes to 0, but the command benefit stays the same, which is if your warlord is from this detachment, you get plus 2 CPs. So you've actually got 14 command points. And then the thinking behind it is I have 14 command points, and then I buy, because I get a free relic, right? I get a free warlord trait and a free relic. So I buy 2 warlord traits, that's 2 CP. I buy 2 relics, that's 2 CP. But I'm starting the game with 10. Like, what? I've got 3 detachments. I've got 3 detachments in my army. I've got 3 warlord traits and 3 relics total in my army, and I'm still starting the game with 10 command points. That is bonkers, but it's what you want to do, because the Dark Eldar list here plays quite a bit out of its stratagems. There are some nice stratagems for them, but there aren't very many for this list. There are like 4 or 5 that are key to the list working properly, but you're going to want to use some of them 2 or 3 times. So you will go through the CP, so you do need a fair amount. So that's the thinking behind how it was built, like the structure of it. Then Drazar. Sorry. Drazar is an absolute monster. He's got flat 3 damage profile, as I was saying. He's a marine killer. He can fight twice, like straight away, pretty much, as a charging unit. He's got a 4+ invulnerable save. He's got a 2+ armor save. He has 6 wounds, and for some reason, he's that tough that he halves all damage inflicted on him. It's silly. He is wicked. He's wicked. That's the only way to put it. He's really, really good. Like really, really good. He also gives +1 to wounds to incubi units, and it says incubi, like incubi units in like the faction keyword is like bold, so that means it affects him too. He gives himself +1 to wound because he has the incubi keyword, and then he makes other incubi units around him as well get +1 to wound. So he is amazing. He's a force multiplier, but he's also a unit on his own. So that's why you take Drazar in the army and make him the warlord. Then I've got the Master Archon. Now the Master Archon is in there because it gives me access to Vect. You know, he's a Blackheart character. He gives me access to Agents of Vect. That's why I've gone Blackheart there. And also, what it does is he's got a 2+ invulnerable. So if there's a nasty unit that I don't really want hitting the rest of my army or hitting my incubi or stuff like that, then I can just like chuck him into them, kind of thing, if I think he can survive around because of the 2+ invulnerable on the shadow field. And who knows, he could tank stuff. So he's quite nice for being versatile like that. But also he's got the Gin Blade. So being Black Heart lets him reroll 1 hit roll. Now you've got 5 attacks. The Gin Blade gives you +2. So he's got 7 attacks with the Gin Blade. He's hitting on 2s and he can reroll 1 of the ones. So you should get 7 hits. He should get 7 hits. And then the Gin Blade, it's like strength 4, -3, and again, flat 3 damage. And because he's a Master Archon, he's got the Splintered Genius rule, meaning that once per battle, at the end of the fight phase, this is different to Drazar, at the end of the fight phase, if he's within engagement range of an enemy unit, he can strike again. So he can fight twice. So it's really cool, you know, like we've gone through 2 characters at the moment. They're dirt cheap. They add up to like 200 points together, and they're just absolute units. You know, they're both really tough to kill, and then they're both flat 3 damage. You know, there's a reroll wound element in there somewhere. There's a +1 to wound element in there, reroll element in there on Drazar. Is so much, and then the Archon gives reroll 1s to hit to core units, but because it's Black Heart. Oh no, sorry, not because it's Black Heart. Because he's an Archon, he gives it to Blades for Hire as well. So he will affect the incubi, basically. He gives reroll 1s to hit to all of Blackheart, like all of Blackheart units, but then also all of the incubi in my army. So he's wicked and Drazar's wicked. Those are the first 2 HQs. We're 2 HQs in, and they're just badass. Both of them kick some serious butt. They're really good. They're really, really good. Then we've got 5 Cabalite Warriors in a Venom. Now their job is to just zoom around the board, getting some objectives. The Venom can jump on an objective, and the nicest thing about having a Venom on an objective is they're a little bit tougher to shift than you think, because they're -1 to hit with the 5 pin vulnerable save. They also move very quickly, and they can advance and charge from turn 2, which is bonkers. But the best thing about it is if that's on an objective and your opponent opens it, then your squad gets out as well. And if there's not much threat left, they can just get out into the objective too. So it's kind of like double threats your opponent has to deal with to deny you points on objectives. And of course, the game is all about objectives. So that's it. 1 Venom with Cabalites in there, screening, holding objectives, or dropping off some troops and then advancing forward into your opponent's line and charging stuff to tie it up. That's what it's for. Then you've got the 2 units of 7 incubi. Now, the incubi are bonkers. Just take a look at them. Take a look at them. Incubi are so silly. They have like 3 or 4 attacks a model. They're flat 2 damage. They're -3. They're flat 2 damage. When they roll a 6 to wound, it becomes -4 and then flat 3 damage because of the blade specialists. So every time they roll a 6 to hit, every time they roll a 6 to wound, it's an extra AP. But then also every time they roll a 6 to wound, their damage gets increased by 1. That's an incubi rule. So every time you roll a 6 to wound, it's -4 flat 3 damage. And other than that, it's -3 2 damage. But then they get +1 to wound from Drazar, and then they get re-roll hit rolls from the Archon. They are bonkers good, like bonkers good. Incubi are probably point for point the best unit in this codex. The best unit in this codex. So there's 2 units of 7 Incubi, and they're in Raiders. Now the reason they're in Raiders is so they can take the characters with them. You've got 7 Incubi with that Master Archon in one Raider, and then 7 Incubi and Drazar in another Raider. Oh man, that's so powerful, and it will hit so hard, it will just crush stuff. It will hit so hard and it will destroy stuff. Now, the reason they're in Raiders is because it's, bigger transport capacity. Otherwise, you could only take 5 in a character, and you really want, I think 6 or 7 is the sweet spot. It's a lot better than 5. So 7 is a nice number. 7 is a nice number. Then both of them have got Dark Lancers on them, both of the Raiders, because they're cheap, and also it offers you some anti-tank, and people do have to be scared of them, Someone can't just go, oh, you know what, it doesn't matter if he hits me with that D3 +3 damage weapon on my tank, so stuff like that. They will have to hide if they don't want to get shot. It just gives you that threat. It's all about threat. And then they've got Grizzly trophies on them because they reduce the enemy's leadership by 2. So, within 3 inches of them. So they just wade in there. When so the Incubi get out and they advance and they charge. Then the Raiders come in behind them and charge in as well, or stay within 3 of the enemy unit the Incubi are going into. Then the Incubi charge in. And then because of the Grizzly trophies, the enemy unit's leadership is reduced by 2. And the Incubi have a rule where if they're in combat with you, they roll 2d6. And if it's above your leadership, you fight last. You cannot be selected to fight until the end of the phase, basically. So, yeah, I think that's so powerful. Getting out, because it lets you get out of 2. You know what I mean? You can get out of both Raiders at the same time and charge into 2 units that you want to kill. And then, the chances are one of them will be made to fight last. So one of them will fight last, and then the other one you fight first. So you charge them with 2 units. You manage to get it off on this unit, so they're fighting last. So what you do is you fight here first and kill the unit, and then this unit can't interrupt, and so you fight into them as well. So they are, it's like the combat synergy of them is great. So that's why you've got Drazar, 7 Incubi and a Raider, Master Archon, 7 Incubi and a Raider. And that's like the main hitting power in combat of the army, and it's just so scary. So scary. Then we've got the Cursed Blade Patrol Detachment. Now here, you realise that Master Succubus are incredible. They hit so hard if you tool them up right. But to tool them up right, you need to take 2 Master Succubus, you need to put them in separate detachments. So it's quite a bit, but if you build the army around it, it looks very nasty. So this is a Cursed Blade detachment. The reason I've gone Cursed Blade, because I know a lot of people are going Lilith's one, because they got a lot of stratagems in the Caradon book. But I'm trying, like I said, I was trying to do something a little bit different. So Cursed Blade, it gives me +1 strength. +1 strength is wicked on witches because they're not that strong. And then what you do after that is also every time you pass an unmodified save roll of a 6, the unit in melee, then the unit hitting you suffers a mortal wound, which is really nice. Just a bonus. Like on the way out as you're dying, you could do 2 or 3 mortal wounds to someone by chance, and that would be incredible. So that's why I've gone Cursed Blade. The Master Succubus. So you've got a Master Succubus in there. Now they have a rule. I think it's called Show Stealer. So they've got a rule where after they fight, so they come in, they advance, they charge you, they hit you, and then they go, okay, now I can consolidate 6 inches instead of 3, and I do not have to go close to you. So you charge them, you stay an inch away from, like bang on an inch from them, hit them, and then you can move 6 inches back out of combat. That is so powerful. Moving 6 inches back out of combat, meaning they can't hit you back, and they have to spend their turn dealing with you, which is awesome. So that's why I've got that Master Succubus. So she's a Master Succubus, and then she's got the Stim Addict Warlord trait. So combat drugs. You're allowed to duplicate combat drugs now. You can take whichever ones you want. But if you choose them, you get 1. If you roll for your combat drugs, you get 2. You roll 2d6 on the table. Now, Stim Addict lets her roll an additional 2d6 and apply the results. So she has 4 combat drugs. You give her the Stim Addict Warlord trait and you roll 4d6 and she gets 4 different combat drugs, making her an absolute monster. So the chances are she will get +1 attack and +1 strength in there along the way. Sorry, +1 attack is the only one that matters. So chances are she'll get +1 attack in most games. Then you give her the Triptych Whip. So the Triptych Whip gives you +3 attacks. She has 6 attacks base, most likely going to get 1 from the combat drug, so that's 7. And then the Triptych Whip gives her 3. So she's going to have like 10 attacks. 10 attacks in combat. She's hitting on 2s. And then the Triptych Whip is poison 2+. So she's wounding on 2s as well. Imagine that, 10 attacks. 10 attacks, hit on 2s, wound on 2s, -3 flat 2 damage. So she just wades in there, absolutely decimates a unit that's holding an objective, and then moves 6 inches away, which I think is probably one of the most powerful tools in the game right now. And she's dirt cheap. It's like 65 points. 65 points for that. She's like a marine killer, like a marine objective holder killer. Intercessors, scouts, even old school marines, anything like that, she'll just go through. Things like Lich Guard that people are getting, like new codexes, they're getting 2 wound models are getting rinsed. Even Vanguard veterans, they'll pop. Sanguinary Guard, they can just go in there and hurt so much. So she'll go in there, always winning on 2s with a flat 2 damage whip, and then she'll just smack and move out. That's what she's there for. So it's a big combat threat basically. Then you've got 5 witches, and I've given them the +1 attack drug because we've made them strength 4 now. So they're strength 4 with what did I just say? Curse Blade. So they're strength 4 because of the Curse Blade, and then you give them the +1 attack drug, and they've got like 5 attacks a model because they have 3 base, +1 for the combat blade, and then +1 for this. So 5 attacks a model, man. And then with the sergeant, they've got 26 attacks. 5 witches with 26 attacks. They'll clear objectives as well, which is it's an amazing thing for them. And they run in with the succubus. The succubus is with them in their venom. So again, the venom just goes over to objectives and stuff. It's all about playing the mission. The list is all about playing the mission. And then if somebody opens the venom, you've got 5 witches and a master succubus again now, and then the witches are protection for the succubus. But if not, a venom goes to an objective. Now, you can get out with your witches and your succubus and just do a bunch of damage, hold the objective. The succubus moves back 6 inches again. So what you can do is the witches can fight first, stay like in the terrain piece wherever they're fighting, or on the objective wherever they're fighting, stay there. Then the succubus can fight after them, go past them forwards, so she's the closest to the enemy, attack, and then jump 6 back behind the witches for more protections. They work in synergy very well. Then you've got the 2 units of 5 mandrakes, purely there to play the mission. The 2 units of 5 mandrakes, they just drop in different places. They can do things like scramblers for you, raise the banners for you. So they're in there purely to play secondary mission for you, but also drop on objectives and play primary mission for you. They're there for mission purposes, but they've got the mortal wound shooting as well. So if they don't need to do an action, they can just add to the damage potential of your army. Then you've got 2 units of 10 Hellions. This is the magic in the army, man. You've got 2 units of 10 Hellions. You give them both the +1 toughness combat drug in this army. +1 toughness combat drugs. They're toughness 5 with 2 wounds each. They're dirt cheap for that. But then also, because they're Cursed Blade, they get +1 strength. Now they're strength 3, then their glaive thing makes them strength 4, and then in Cursed Blade, they're strength 5. So they're strength 5, toughness 5 for 17 points a model. That's insane. They just run up, they shoot, they charge in. They've got 3 attacks a model. So they're going to have like 31 attacks here, these Hellions. They're going to have like 31 attacks. They'll be hitting on 2s. You can make them reroll 1s against damage units with a spell. With a stratagem. So you do a stratagem and you go, oh, your unit's not at starting strength, I'm re-rolling my 1s. So you go, okay, I'm hitting on 2s, I'm re-rolling my 1s, so I'm going to get pretty much all hits. And then you go, now I'm strength 5, -1, and I'm flat 2 damage. So they're going to do a bucket ton of damage, but then also on top of that, they're toughness 5 with 2 wounds each, so your opponent's going to have to dedicate quite a lot to actually deal with them, or they'll go back in and carry on doing the same thing. But then, of course, you've got the eviscerating flyby stratagem as well. So if they pass over an enemy unit, use this stratagem, and then you roll a dice for each Hellion in your unit, so 10 dice, and for each 5+, the enemy unit suffers a mortal wound if their infantry it's on a 4+. So imagine that going into something like Deathwing Knights. You just go, there you go, take 5 or 6 mortal wounds. That's two dead Terminators before I've even attacked you. I think that's incredible. And, you know, you can advance over them and then do this, and then you can advance and charge from turn 2. So, yeah, these Hellions are magic. They're really good. And the way that they're normally played is one unit goes in reserve with the Webway Portal stratagem for 1 CP, and the other one starts on the board hidden somewhere. But their versatility is what they're taken for in this army. They're a scare threat. And, you know, you've got Incubi, you've got triple Incubi units, 4 characters who hit hard in combat, and 2 units, 10 aliens who hit hard in combat. It's just the synergy is really good, and it's such a pressure list, a pressure list. That's what the Hellions do. And then, of course, you've got the Venom that the Witches and the Master Succubus go in. And that's, you know, the Venoms, after they've dropped units off, the perfect thing about them is, like, the little Witch units and the Cabalite units hold your backfield objectives and stuff. The Venoms can play for the midfield objectives with the Succubus and a couple of Witches and stuff like that. And then everything else is pure pressure. Pure pressure. And then you've got the Red Grief Patrol Detachment. Now, the reason that's Red Grief is you get, what is it? I will remember. You get +2 to your charge rolls, and you get rerollable charges. So you get rerollable charges, which is huge on combat units anyway. But then also you get +2 to your advances. Now that's amazing because you can, remember, you can advance and charge from turn 2. So then you've got the Master Succubus in this detachment. Now that Master Succubus moves 8 inches. She moves 8 inches. And then because she's Red Grief, you will add 2 to her advance. So she goes 10 plus a d6. So she could go up to 16 inches. She's getting out of a Venom. So that's another 3. She can get 19 inches out of this Venom, wherever it is, and then charge. She's a beast. And that's the thing. If this Venom moves mid-board somewhere, turn 1, after that, she can reach anywhere on the board. Her threat is stupid. Her threat is really, really silly. Really, really good. So you've got that Master Succubus, and again, because she's a Master Succubus, she can strike and then consolidate 6 inches in any direction. Now, she's got the Whirling Death Warlord trait. So they have 6 attacks standard, 6 attacks normally. But what you can do is you can run in there and you can go, right, as long as you've got more than 3 models in your unit, I'm going to use the Whirling Death. I'm going to choose to use the Whirling Death Warlord trait. And you can choose to replace her attacks characteristic with the number of enemy models within 2 inches of her +3. So you go, well, if there's 3 models within 3 of her, she's going to get 6 attacks anyway. And she normally gets 6. So she normally gets 6 attacks, and then you run in there and you go, okay, there's five intercessors fighting me. Cool, so I'll use that. I get 5 attacks +3. I've got 8 attacks now. Or you go, oh, I've run into a horde. Oh, okay, there's 12 orc boys within 2 inches of me. And that's the thing, it's just within 2, not wholly within 2, just within 2. So you go, okay, she's surrounded. There's 12 orc boys around me. She gets 12 attacks +3. She's got 15 attacks. She's horrible. And then what you do is you give her the +1 strength combat drug. So +1 strength combat drug makes her strength 4. And then you give her the Blood Glaive Relic. And that makes her strength 6. So she's strength 6, -3. And check this out. Flat 3 damage. That's insane. With the fact that she can get like 15 attacks. 10 to 15 attacks quite easily. Hitting on 2s and then strength 6. Strength 6, -3, flat 3 damage. She's an absolute monster. Then you got the 5 witches with her. Now, I chose to give them the +1 strength combat drug. So they get 5 attacks less than the Cursed Blade witches. But at least they're the same strength. They're strength 4. And they will still do a lot, you know. It's 21 attacks. 21 attacks on that witch unit and the Master Succubus. And then you've got the Venom for them. But the brilliant thing is, Red Grief have a stratagem for 1 CP. Something aerialists. And what happens is, after you fight, instead of consolidating, if you're within 3 inches of a vehicle or 6 inches of a vehicle, something like that, you can get back into your vehicle. So how cool is that? Your witches get out. Your witches get out and advance forward. Your succubus gets out and advances forward. Your venom then advances forward and charges into the unit or something, or just stands there, stands next to the unit. The witches and the succubus charge in. The witches strike the unit, then get back into their venom. Then the succubus strikes the unit, probably kills the rest, and then consolidates behind the venom, back behind the venom. So both units can go out there, do damage, and then hide again, which is an incredibly powerful tool. Then you've got another unit, 6 Incubi, and of course they're in a Venom, but their Venom's got the Grizzly Trophy, so you can do the same fight last trick, and that's just to add more damage for combat. Then you've got 5 Mandrakes in there, again, purely to play the mission and do some mortal wounds. So there's 3 units of 5 Mandrakes now. They can play the mission incredibly well for you, do all the secondaries for you, get primary points, and then just start dishing mortal wounds out on everyone. Really nice unit for their points. And finally, I've got the 2 units of 3 Reavers. Now, the 2 units of 3 Reavers are in the army because of playing mission again, but it's purely for objectives. These guys are purely for objectives. 2 60-point units. I've given them the +1 toughness. The +1 toughness combat drug. So they're toughness 5 bikes with 2 wounds each. And they're just a cheap unit to run around, bully small units off objectives because they are still -1/1 damage with loads of attacks. So they just hit small units. Like if your opponent's got chaff units like 5 scouts and stuff like that, 2 crypto thralls, 3 scarabs, 3 nurglings. So these guys run in there and pick off little units like that and hold the objectives for you. And they can advance and charge, and they automatically go 26 inches when they advance. They go 18, and then you add 8 inches to their move when they advance. So they're going 26 inches a turn and bullying little units off objectives. So that's how the list works. It's basically hold your backfield with like 5 Cabalite warriors. 5 Cabalite warriors and their empty venom goes to the other objective. If you got 2 in your backfield, but you normally got 1, so the Cabalites, then the Venoms go out. The Venoms go out and play the midfield. So you've got 3 Venoms there that want to play the midfield because you've got the ones with the 2 witches in and the empty one from the Cabalites. So those ones go and play the mid board, and then you've got the Venom with the 6 Incubi on there. They can also play mid board and then sort of try and push forward a little bit from there. So you've got these 3 like Venoms holding objectives, playing the mission for you, but with loads and loads of combat potential in them if anybody ever tries to get close to them. And then you've got those 2 Raiders that run forward, and they've got the Incubi, the Archon and Drazar in them to do max damage and put as much pressure on as you can. Hellions, exactly the same. Run up then and put as much pressure on as you can. Then you've got the Mandrakes playing the secondaries and the primary mission for you slightly as well, playing for mid-board so they come in and play for mid-board, turns 2 and 3, so that your rest of your Venoms with all the combat potential in can run forward and join the Raiders. And then you've also got the Hellions just bombing it up there, doing the exact same thing. And the Reavers as well can just hide and take objectives and stuff like that. And they can go forward, denying your opponent primaries, which is the biggest thing in the game right now. So yeah, that's how the list works. I really hope you guys like this list because I love it. I think it's cool. It's really, really cool. Let's have a look at a couple of ways and how we can tackle it now, because it is very strong, but there are things we can do to play against it. So because this army plays the mission so well, they can be very hard to deal with because even if you're killing their units, they can be, running away with the points. And that's the brilliant thing about it, about this list. But there are a couple of things we can do to tackle it. The first one is damage reduction. Now, they have this issue where if you notice, a lot of the weapons in the army are 2 damage. But the Archon, Drazar, and the Master Succubus with the Bloodglaive are the only ones that are 3 damage. Everybody else in the list is pretty much 2 damage. But damage reduction is amazing because if you can reduce the damage by 1 of these guys, everything becomes damage 1. So the Incubi, yes, they do still hurt. Like, don't get me wrong, it's not like they won't hurt at all. They do still hurt, but reducing the damage by 1, it halves the damage they do. So that's very effective. So anything you can do to reduce damage is amazing. Your Death Guard, get it. Death Guard, get it as standard. The new Mechanicus cohort reduces damage by 1. There's the banner for Dark Angels for Deathwing that reduces damage by 1. There are so many things in the game now that reduce damage by 1. I would definitely incorporate them into your army anyway, because there's so many things out there that are 2 or 3 damage that will go down to 1 or 2, which will help in any game you play, really. So that's one thing to look at, is damage reduction. After that, it's more like how you build the army or how you play. So mobile shooting like if you've got some mobile shooting in your army, that can cause some serious problems to this army because they don't like getting shot. Yes, venoms are a little bit harder to kill than you think, but they do still go down, man. And one lucky shot can kill one of them or something from an eradicator. So that's the kind of way you got to think about it. And mobile shooting, oh man, with high volume shots, that's what you want. You want high volume fire that's mobile. Death Watch. Death Watch would give this army a really good run for its money because they can move so quick with the outriders and the squads, and then they can shoot stuff. They're gonna get reroll ones to wound against whatever you choose. Most likely dedicated transports in this, and then just go for it. Like try and absolutely rinse them. But it's fast moving obsec as well. So, you know, like I say, these venoms want to run onto objectives, and then the witches want to stay inside, ideally. They don't really want to get out. They want to stay inside for like a turn until they come out and start doing their damage. But if they go into an objective and just sit there with a venom, then what you can do is you can run a really quick obsec unit onto the objective and go, there you go, I'm denying you 5 primary points. You know what I mean? So that's a brilliant thing to do to reduce the way that this army wants to play, because this army wants to just go around and play the mission and increase its points as much as it can. And anything you can do to take points off it is the best thing you can do. So fast moving fire to try and get in there and open up some venoms and stuff. And then fast moving obsec, because they want to stay in their venoms for as long as possible. You can deny them primaries or force them to stand outside of the venoms, which is also a big deal for you. Other than that, deep strike denial. Deep strike denial is amazing because things like the second unit of Hellions want to come in from deep strike, and then the main thing is the mandrakes. So you've got those 3 units of 5 mandrakes that want to drop in and play the mission. If you've got deep strike denial, you can push them out to areas where you don't really want the Dark Eldar to be, the Drukhari to be. Then you're already up on your opponent. You're making 225 points of what they've taken redundant, which is amazing. And the best thing about it is if you're locking off zones of the board, so you kind of go like, oh, my opponent's got deploy scramblers, that's what the mandrakes are for. I'll tell you what, I'm going to block off this bit here so you can only drop in your own deployment zone or like the front bit of no man's land. So you're going to have to work turns after this to get scramblers, and it gives me a chance to deal with those units. So deep strike denial is very important because it hinders the ability of the list to play primaries and secondaries very well. And the final thing I thought about is units that auto hit with shooting. So, because it really helps with the overwatch. So flamers would hurt this army so much because, like when these units get out, when they get out of their transports and then they advance, they want to charge you, overwatching them with flamers will just eviscerate so much, because most of it's toughness 3. Well, pretty much all of it. All of it is toughness 3 other than the vehicles. So getting some Overwatch shots off on these will absolutely rinse them. But it also gets around by I think it's called Never Stationary, the stratagem, which is 1 CP, and then the unit is -1 to hit. Also gets around that because you can just go, well, I'm auto-hitting, so I don't care if you're -1 to hit. So yeah, units that auto-hit really hurt this army. Like, really, really hurt this army. So that's how I would have a go at tackling it. Now, let me just give you some alternatives, because there are 1 or 2 things that I thought that could be quite nice to use instead of a couple of things in the army. So different alternatives you could take. The first one is pretty drastic. What you could do is get rid of one of the witch cult patrols. You can get rid of like the red grief one, for example. You do lose quite a lot of things. You lose like the 2 units of 3 reavers, the extra unit of incubi, but you can put them back into the detachment I'm going to talk about. So you can basically lose your reavers, and you're going to lose your witches and your second master succubus, the good one. Well, one of the 2 really good ones, like really, really good ones. You're going to lose those. But in the place of that, you can put Talos in. You can put like a Homunculus Coven detachment in, and you can have some racks, which are tougher objective holding units. And then Talos, because they run forward, they pump out a lot of damage, and they're very hard to kill because you can take -1 damage on them. And they just basically play the mission for you and don't die. So you can do that. And that's very drastic. It kind of takes away a little bit from how the list works overall, because it does a different function at that point. Those units that you put in, they do something different to the rest of your army. It gives you options, but it kind of takes away from synergy. So that's not one that I like that much, but it is something that you can do if you like covens, basically. And the other alternative this is a slight one, and I quite like this one. So I think I'd play with both lists and see which one suited me, and that's what I'd recommend for anyone looking to try this list out. So in that, I would possibly switch out a couple of units from the original list, just like 2 Mandrake units and a Reaver unit, possibly something like that. So you still have 1 Mandrake unit, you still have 1 Reaver unit to go around playing the missions with, and of course you've got all the other stuff in the transports that can play the mission too. So it takes slightly away from the way you play the mission, but instead of those 2 units of Mandrakes and the 1 unit of Reavers, you put a Void Raven Bomber in. Now you give the Void Raven Bomber the Dark Scythes, so it's got loads of shots, or you can keep it with the Dark Lances, so it adds to the firepower of the Raiders. That's what you'd probably do, keep it with the Lances, and it adds to the firepower of the Raiders and just gives you like 4 Dark Lance in the army, which can be quite scary for your opponent. But then you got the bombs, the threat of the bombs that do the void mine. So you can pick an area after it's moved over, and every unit within 6 of that point. So both ends. So it's like a 12-inch bubble, a big 12-inch bubble all the way around. And anybody in that area, you roll a dice for, any enemy unit, on a 4+, they take D6 mortal wounds. D6 mortal wounds. So it's such a big threat, and it will force your opponent to split their army and play it a bit differently. So that's probably the only thing that I would have a look at interchanging, basically. 1 Void Raven Bomber in the army. I hope you've enjoyed this roster review. So this was a list that I came up with. Let me know what you think of it. See if you like it. If you've got any suggestions, please give them, because we're looking to expand this Drukhari force anyway. And remember, by using the link below, you could submit your list to be reviewed too. And until next week, Elite members, see you later.